early childhood development. Each week we talk about a different stage of children development and what children need. And now, here comes your host.
Hello everybody and welcome. My name is Taryn and you are listening to The Parent Thing. We are continuing with our series this week, and this week's episode title is But Is It Wrong Though? This week we will be talking about and focusing on the naughty behaviors and outbursts that young children have. I have naughty in air quotes because these behaviors are seen as naughty but are actually age appropriate. So last week we spoke about age-appropriate expected behaviors that you can expect from children. We broke it down in the form of developmental milestones. This week we are focusing more on behaviors than we are on milestones. I am going to use the word naughty a lot in today's episode, although I'm going to try to avoid the word because I don't believe that the things that I will be talking about is naughty, but I'm using the word naughty for lack of a better term because this is what this kind of behavior is seen as. For the most part, people think that children are naughty. I have to also make mention that there is a huge difference between a naughty child and a rude child, and I'm going to get into that later. It is when some naughty behaviors are not curbed and there is no discipline that it turns into rude as a child gets older. But we will get into that very briefly a little bit later. I have mentioned previously that before 3 or 3.5 years old, there is no fundamental concept of right and wrong that a child has. A child is hardwired to explore and touch and poke and prod and pull and push. There are many other naughty things that they are inclined to do that I would like to get into. Before I continue though, I keep saying that children don't know right from wrong, and I cannot stress that enough. And I also cannot stress enough that it is the responsibility of the parent to teach them these lessons as they grow. We need to teach our children what they are able to understand. And I say that because I have noticed that in many cases when a child is really young, parents talk a lot, give a lot of rules and reasons, and you can't do this because that, and if you, and blah, 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 blah. And then as they get older, when they become teenagers, parents start saying less and less. And it should actually be the opposite, that we teach our children what they are able to understand. And I'm going to get into that as we go on in today's episode. Another thing that I want to make mention of is that you have to have a relationship with your child to be able to effectively implement rules. I am a firm believer that rules without a relationship leads to rebellion. So if you are just always dictating to a child what to do, but there's no trust, there's no love felt, there will be a rebellion or a defiance that comes from that as a child grows older. Let's get into some typical behaviors that are seen as naughty or bad or wrong that a young child displays. Often when a child runs or jumps on a couch or a piece of furniture that they shouldn't be jumping on, or they're running inside or on bricks or concrete where it is potentially hazardous, or if they're climbing up something that is potentially hazardous, parents have a habit of telling a child that what they are doing is wrong. And today's episode title is But Is It Wrong Though? So I'm here to question that, or challenge you to question that. Is running wrong? Is jumping wrong? Is climbing wrong? Absolutely not. None of those action verbs are wrong at all, but there is an appropriate place to do so. So instead of telling a child that what they are doing is wrong, or that they shouldn't run, or that they shouldn't jump, or that they shouldn't climb, it would be better to say, don't run inside, let's go run on the grass. Don't jump on the couch. We can jump outside, we can jump on the floor, or if you have a trampoline or something that they can jump on, you can tell them that that's where they can jump. But mostly on the floor. Jumping on the floor is absolutely great. Climbing too. A child needs to climb. There's so much development that happens when they climb. Their core muscles are engaged, their arms are engaged, their legs are engaged, their brains are engaged, like everything is engaged. So it is a very necessary activity, but there are appropriate places to do so. You would then direct them. So when a child is around 2, 3, or 4 years old, they can't handle or understand. As I said earlier, we need to teach our children what they are able to understand. And when they are 2 or 3 or 4 years old, they can't understand a whole bunch of instruction or reasons. What they can understand is the rule, and the rule is no. How you would handle a behavior like that as the teacher, as the parent, is you would stop them from doing the thing that they are doing. We'll take climbing up on a gate, for example. When they are climbing up on a gate, you have to tell them no. That's the rule. You cannot climb on a gate. But all they can handle, all that they can understand is the no. You then would have to physically stop the behavior. So you would have to go to the gate that they are climbing on, say no, and then remove them from the gate so that they understand that they shouldn't be doing that, and then provide an alternate activity that they can do. The next few behaviors I would like to talk about that are seen as naughty are biting, hitting, pinching, and the good old tantrum or impulsive emotional outbursts. So let's get into biting. This is such a normal thing for a young child to do. Not because they are naughty, not because they are aggressive. And the same goes for hitting and pinching. There is often times that children are frustrated and they don't have the words to express it, and they don't have the ability to regulate their emotion. There has to be an outlet, and they are naturally inclined to bite or hit or pinch. A child could also have an oral fixation, meaning they have an obsessive need to put something into their mouth. And some children don't outgrow this oral fixation as easily as others do. So if a child is a biter, this is one of the biggest problems I encounter with parents. If a child bites their child, there is such a big uproar. Why is this child biting? And why can't you stop the child? Because this is a normal behavior, and we cannot punish or reprimand the child for it because they don't yet know that it is wrong. When they get older and they deliberately bite with the intention of harming, that's when they know what is right and wrong, and that's where discipline and a consequence can come in. But when they are between the ages of 2 and 3.5 and they are biting, they most likely need an oral stimulation. They most likely need an outlet for a frustration that they are holding, or as I said earlier, they have an oral fixation and something needs to be in their mouth. They need some stimulation. They need that sensory input or output. At the young age, they can understand no. If you give a whole long explanation as to why you are saying no, you're going to lose the child and you're just wasting your breath. Again, when a child is biting, you say no, you physically remove and stop the behavior, and you provide an alternate distraction. So you can say no, you can move them away from the child that they are biting or the adult that they are biting and give them something else that they can bite. Maybe a sensory cloth, could be a teething ring, or you could just distract them with doing something completely different to take the focus off of the oral stimulation need. Same goes for hitting. It is a natural instinct for a child to hit when they are frustrated. At this age, they are territorial, and that's another behavior that I want to cover, so I may as well just do it now. So they are territorial. They don't want to share. They want to be possessive over their things. This is a very egocentric age. It's me, it's mine. And when they are frustrated because what they want is not what they are getting, it is a natural inclination to hit. And again, before 3.5, they don't know that this is wrong. They just know that this might get me what I want. So that's the behavior that they exhibit. And even being territorial, that's the behavior that they exhibit. And they can't understand the concept of needing to share until they're about 4 years old, when they become aware of others as well as themselves. That's another milestone that they reach, but only when they're older. So it is unfair and it is unrealistic to expect them to be able to share or understand that they are hurting somebody when they bite, when they hit, when they pinch, because they are not yet aware of the needs and the emotions and the feelings of other people. They are only just learning that about themselves. So again, I say when they are between the ages of 2 and 3, you say no, which is the rule. So you give them the rule, which is don't do that or stop doing that, or just a plain old no. You physically have to get up from where you are to stop them from doing what they are doing. Because if you say stop doing that, chances are they're not going to listen. You have to teach them to listen. And how you teach them to listen is to actually show them what stop means. Don't do that. When you move them away and you say, no, don't do that, that's how they learn what stopping a behavior is. And then you provide them with a distraction and an alternate behavior. When they get older, when they are between the ages of 4 and 6, they start understanding a reason along with the rule. If your 5-year-old is still biting and you say, no, don't bite because it hurts, they have the rule and they understand the reason because they now understand the concept of hurt. Again, like I said, raising a baby or raising a child is scaffolding. So you have to start at the bottom and lay foundation and then lay a layer after that and then add a layer and add a layer. Same goes with teaching them discipline and regulating these, again, air quotes, naughty behaviors. Give them the rules when they're between 2 and 3 years old. Give them the rule along with the reason when they are between 4 and 6 years old. When they are throwing tantrums, it's not because they are naughty. It is because they are learning to regulate their emotions. They are also at this point learning to push boundaries and see how much they can actually get away with. They're pushing boundaries to see how long they can cry for before you give in and give them what they want. This is where they start transitioning into understanding. So back to tantrums and impulsive emotional outbursts. Learning to obey and heed to an instruction is something that happens in this age bracket. A tantrum is always a cry for attention. Even if it's something that they want, it is attention. And they, as I've said before, do not know the difference between good attention and bad attention. So a tantrum should actually not get any attention. There should be a rule and they should then be left to figure it out if they are refusing to listen, which is so normal at 2 or 3 years old. Please do not punish your child when they are throwing a tantrum, but please do discipline your child when they are throwing a tantrum. I am going to have a whole episode on the difference between punishing a child and disciplining a child. Something that parents, not all parents, none of this is an all parents thing, but it is something that some parents do struggle with and they don't really know the difference. So I will do a whole episode on that. When your child is having an impulsive emotional outburst, it's important for you to guide them and not criticize them. Allow them to know that they are seen and they are heard and they are loved and they are valid and valued, because the words that you use carry so much weight. Don't call them naughty. Don't call them bad. Don't call them any words that might affect how they see themselves in a negative manner. Let them know that what they are doing is wrong, but not that they are wrong. Whining and nagging are two things that could definitely make a parent or teacher lose patience with a child. It is annoying to be nagged. I agree. It is annoying for a child to whine and whine and whine. I agree. But this is not a naughty thing. It is an age-appropriate and expected behavior. I have had this problem in my class over the years with multiple children. When is it home time? When can I eat? What are we going to do now? All day, every day. So what I did was I started making visual timetables, and this might be a good idea even for routine at home. And every morning I would explain to them, first we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, all in the form of pictures. So I had a circle time picture, and then a snack time picture, and a hand washing picture, and a class like structured activity picture. So they kind of knew eventually what was coming and what was happening. And when I did get the whine or the nag, but when are we going to play outside? I would remind them, here's our day, and point to where we are now. And then they have to wait for us to eat, and then we can go and play outside. Because children don't have a concept of time. My little sister, she's a lot younger than me. And when she was little, she would say last morning. Anything that has happened or is supposed to still happen would be last morning. Last morning we will go to the park. Last morning we went to, so there was no concept of time. A lot of them will say tomorrow for anything that they know is still to come or even that has happened before. They don't really have a concept of time, but when they see it visually in the form of pictures, they begin to have a concept of time. So that again is guiding them and not criticizing them to understanding what the behavior is. So when they know their timetable and they continue to whine and they continue to nag, I will tell them, I've shown you the picture, so I will tell you again later what we're going to do next, but for now it's time to write, or for now it's time to wash our hands, just so that they get that vocabulary and know that there is a time for everything. This is how the concept of time starts developing, but it is absolutely age appropriate for them to whine and for them to nag. Being defiant or ignoring or pretending not to hear you when you talk is also an age-appropriate behavior. Children get engaged in what they do, and they come to understand that when you call their name, it means that they need to stop what they're doing. So they become professional deaf ears. They know how to do that really well. And this is another case where we as adults have to get up and physically go to them, make them look us in the eye and tell them, when I talk to you, you have to look at me. This is how they learn it, because they don't know that what they're doing is wrong. What they do know is, I want to continue doing what I'm doing, and if I don't answer, I can continue. So we have to teach them that this kind of behavior is not acceptable. When I talk to you, you have to look at me. And the more you do that, the easier it will get. Picky eating is age appropriate too. And this one I'm going to do a whole episode on, because I saw a beautiful post from an Instagram page called Healthiest Babies, where they talk about how to avoid your child being a picky eater. So I do want to talk about food and eating in general, and picky eating will be in that episode too. But just as a general, picky eating, it is not a naughty behavior. It is absolutely age appropriate when a child gets a little too much leeway on what they can and cannot choose to eat. Resisting sleep or avoiding nap times or bedtimes is also age appropriate. They do not yet know how to regulate what they are feeling, and often can't pinpoint the tired feeling, which is why they resist sleep. And there's also the curiosity factor, where they do feel like they will be missing out on something if they do sleep. This is where routine comes in, and routine is part of this series, where they know what to expect and to anticipate. And as soon as they see the signs of a nap time routine coming or sleep time routine coming, the more consistent you are with it, the easier it will be when nap time and sleep time does come around. The other day, I was talking to a mom of an almost 3-year-old child. She was telling me that she cannot handle his incessant crying. If he wants something to drink, he will cry instead of asking for it. If he wants to go to the toilet, he will cry instead of say what he wants. I said to her that children are born with 2 natural instincts: to suck and to cry. For all the time that he has been growing up and he needed something before he had vocabulary and before he could say words and make sentences. He would cry and his need would be met. So for her to expect him to know that he shouldn't cry and instead he should ask is unrealistic, because crying has gotten him what he's wanted up to this point. So I told her that it's so important to guide him in this time and say, okay, I will get you the water that you want, but say, Mom, please can I have some water? So teaching them that they don't have to cry and teaching them to use their words is guidance, and that's what they need at this age. For a child to be clumsy when doing stuff with themselves, spilling liquids, spilling food, making a mess accidentally, this is also age appropriate. I have seen parents get angry at their children for making a human mistake such as this. I am a whole grown human and I probably have to buy a set of glasses every 3 to 4 months, and I've always been this way, even as a teenager, even as a child. Clumsy by nature, I spill stuff all the time, I kick stuff over, I drop things. Human error. A toddler or a young child is no different. Sometimes it is inconvenient when they've spilled something and time is against the parent and a parent gets really frustrated and yells at a child. I would like to challenge parents to be very mindful and intentional of moments like this, to tell them it's okay, you made a mistake, and get it cleaned up. It has happened. Yelling at a child will not change the fact that this has already happened, and it will not change the fact that it genuinely was an accident or a mistake. It is a different thing when a child is angry and knocks your glass over as an expression of that anger. That's where discipline comes in. That's when to discipline, but not when it was accidentally done. In all of this, again, I said that there is a huge difference between a naughty, air quotes, child and a rude child. When some naughty behaviors are not curbed and there are no rules and alternate behaviors put in place, that's when a child becomes rude. When a child is disrespectful and talks back, and this is only when they are 5 and up, when they are rude, when they are disrespectful, when they use inappropriate language, when they are defiant and they ignore you when you speak to them and it's not curbed and there's no discipline and you don't stop them, this is when a child becomes rude and a little more difficult to deal with, especially when the teenage years come in. When they display being ungrateful, so throwing a tantrum when they don't get what they want when they are younger and it's not curbed, it becomes a rude behavior. There are times that children can be given choices. We will be having a whole episode on choices in this series, but there are times that you can give a child a choice, and then there are times where there are no choices and they will need to obey that. Your job in this is to teach them thankfulness, to teach them to be grateful and not to whine or throw a tantrum when they do get something. Teach them also as they get older to save or to earn and get what they want, to understand the value of stuff. There's a couple that I knew a couple of years ago who had a 5-year-old daughter. Well, she was 5 at the time, and there was so many things that she wanted, and they thought that it would be a good opportunity to teach her the value of saving and learning to understand the value. And they told her to get creative in how she could earn the money to get the toy that she had wanted. She got right to it. She was like, she's going to bake cake, she's going to sell ice creams, and just put together this little store, and was eventually able to raise most of the money that she needed to buy the toy that she wanted. And she really did look after it, really did value it, and it was such an awesome thing to watch, that the lesson that you don't just get everything that you want can be taught as young as 5 years old, and they can understand it when they are guided and not criticized, and they are encouraged to be creative and to do the work, and knowing that there's a reward at the end is a really great lesson. Another behavior that is rude is lying. In the early stages, they are pushing boundaries, but when they are harsh and irrational consequences that they remember when they need to tell you the truth. That is what provokes lying. So when we talk about punishment versus discipline, I will get into these behaviors more. And then another behavior, the last one for today, that is not appropriate and can be seen as actual naughty is when they are at school age, so 6+, and they become bullies, when they are knowingly hurting or harming others. This is completely different to the earlier years when they pinch and bite and push and hit, because we spoke about that earlier. So this is completely different to that. This is when they are intentional about inflicting harm or hurting somebody else. There should be an action and consequences for this. To avoid them hurting anybody anymore, there has to be discipline involved when it comes to bullying. We have come to the end of today's episode, but I really want to do a recap on today's episode before we finish up. Parents, please remember that when these naughty behaviors are exhibited while your child is young, it is not a naughty behavior. It only becomes naughty when the behavior is intentional and they know what they are doing when they are older. It only becomes a naughty behavior when there is no discipline, when they do it intentionally. That's when it becomes a naughty behavior. It's important to put boundaries in place for them. It's important to be consistent with those boundaries and stick to what you say. Honor your word. If you tell them the consequence of their behavior and they choose to behave in that way, you have to follow through with the consequence, or they will never stop the behavior that you're trying to stop. So it is so important to be consistent, and it is also important to note that they are not going to learn the lesson the first time around. So repetition is important. Consistent repetition. So that consistency word is not going away. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and that you will join us for next week's episode as we continue the series on behaviors and what is important for children at this age. Our episode title next week is All by Myself, where we will be talking about the importance of independence. See you next week. Have a wonderful week ahead. Bye.
Thank you for tuning into the Parent Thing. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you have any questions, feedback, or content suggestions, please email us at Taryn@theparentthing.com. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, and give my aunt a 5-star rating.